an artistic talent? Or are you an art enthusiast looking to develop a new hobby or expand your creative skills? Then the Collins Arts Summer Camp is perfect for you. Opening day August 4th at 2:30 p.m. at the Kingstown Technical Institute. The camp runs in 2 exciting sessions from August 4th to 15th for beginners and amateurs, exploring the fundamentals of art and dive into the world of creativity with guided sessions designed for newcomers. And from August 18th to 29th, school-based artists and young enthusiasts take your skills to the next level, learn new techniques, refine your style, and experiment with fresh approaches to art. The summer camp will conclude with a mini exhibition showcasing works created by participants, Collins Art, and more. Registration forms are available at the Kingstown Technical Institute, and the registration deadline is July 15th, 2025. Camp opens to ages 9 to 99. Spaces are limited. Register early to secure your spot.
Last year, she brought you Growing Up in Vincy and a collection of poems, Vincy Lifestyle. She told you about minivans, Commerceman, Kingstown and Carnival. In Growing Up Vincy, she took you down memory lane to playing games at school, riding in wooden buses, Saturday and Sunday chores, bathing and washing in the river. She even told you about zombie stories. This year, she brings you Uniquely Vincy, which details all our unique features. Tree, Madongo, whaling in Beckway, Conch Fest, and Dancing the Cake in Union Island.
And Dr. Nicolette Springs books, Growing Up in Vincy, a collection of poems, Vincy Lifestyle, and Uniquely Vincy are available at Games Book Center, Paul's Avenue, and Variety Service Center, Georgetown, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines.
Every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. you will hear a old-time story by Jean Abbott on BAYHILLNEWS.net.
Good evening to listeners on Bay Hill News Network and Kankadi Radio. Our story tonight is called The Glue of Greed, taken from the Oxford Tales from West Africa, retold by Martin Bennett. It was getting to harvest time in the village, and Nancy, world champion for greed and fast eating, flyweight division, could hardly wait. Yam! Yam, yam, pounded yam as high and round as a hill. And Nancy's stomach beat like a drum at the thought of it. But there was a problem. And Nancy wanted all that food for himself, and himself alone. The idea that anyone should share it with him was most distasteful. And when those who share in it were his own family, his own flesh and stomach, that was more distasteful still. Whatever the laws of heredity said, otherwise he would not let it happen. No way. And as he and his family made their way home from the farm, and Nancy thought out a plan. He was not a Nancy for nothing. He would show them that when it came to eating, he could beat anyone, even his own family. Spidery, greedy guts that they were. Then, that same evening at table, a very strange thing happened. The first bowls of groundnut soup and pounded yam had just been emptied. "Ma!" cried Kwesi. "Ma!" cried Kojo. "Ma!" cried Kwame. "Ma!" cried Kobina. Last, but by no means least, completing the hungry chorus. "Haba! What terrible children!" scolded Mrs. Anansi, otherwise known as Anancia. "What terrible appetites! Like holes that get bigger and emptier with filling. Why, you would eat the table if I put sauce on it. Don't you know that the second helping is always reserved for your father? Wait till harvest comes. Then you will be able to get your second helpings. And even third and fourth ones if you like." Mrs. Anansi turned to her husband at the head of the table. "Now, my dear, have some more groundnut soup. You know it's your favorite." But instead of automatically holding out his bowl as usual, Anansi just sat there and said, "I'm sorry, my sweetie, but you see, I am not hungry." "Not hungry? Have my ears heard correct? How possible? Is this my very own Anansi talking or someone in disguise? And Nancy refusing food? And after all the pounding I have done? Or perhaps you have been taking food outside. My husband, look me in the eyes and tell me. No, it's not that, my dear. Don't vex. It's just that since this afternoon on the farm, I have not been feeling well. Not quite myself. If you will excuse me, I think I had better go to bed and rest. Mrs. Anansi readily agreed. For the first time in history, ancient or modern, her husband refused to eat. It was a sign that Anansi must be very ill indeed. Ooh, ah, ooh. All night the small hut echoed with Anansi's cries of pain until the walls themselves seemed to ache in sympathy. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Again and again until Mrs. Anansi decided it was time to call up the traditional doctor on the bush telegraph system. A waiting and keen-eared monkey picked up the message and flew with it through the trees as fast as his long arms would carry him. A final leap, and he reached the doctor's surgery. There was no time to lose. The doctor packed some leaves and portions into a bag and made his way through the shadows to Anansi's hut. By the time he arrived, Anansi was almost too weak to speak. To his expert, "How are you?" Anansi could only groan from beneath the bedclothes. Worse and worse. Each word, it seemed, threatened to be Anansi's last. The doctor's visits increased. The bush telegraph had not been so busy in moons, and at all hours, its branches could be heard crackling and rustling beneath the messenger monkey's weight. "I cannot understand it," the traditional doctor said to Mrs. Anansi in private. "I have tried every leaf and root in the rainforest, and not a few from the savannah as well. But your husband is not responding to any of them." "Oh, doctor," poor Mrs. Anansi replied, wringing her 8 legs, "please do something, anything. This afternoon I offered Anansi a grung nut, just a tiny grung nut, and Anansi told me it was too much, that if he ate it he might vomit. Oh, I'm too old to become a widow." The following day, it seemed her worst fears were about to come true. Anansi raised a trembling leg from beneath the bedclothes on his bamboo bed and beckoned to his wife. "Anansia," he gasped in an uphill voice, "bring me a pen and paper. Yes, my dear, my time has come like it must to us all, and I wish to make my last will and testament. My wife, I leave all my earthly possessions to you and the children. Only, my wife, listen very careful. When they bury me, bury my cooking things with me. Don't forget to put plenty of salt and pepper and dried shrimps. You know, my dear, how I like dried shrimps in my soup. Yes, in the next world, my spirit will need feeding. Also, put plenty of kerosene. Who knows whether kerosene is scarce in the next world as it is on earth? Next, listen well, Anansia. This is most important of all. Take my coffin to the middle of the farm. Bury me right in the middle, so my spirit can be near you and protect you. But I am too weak to... And with a last sigh, Anansi said no more. "Speak, Anansi, speak! My husband, speak!" But it seemed like Anansi was dead. The whole village mourned. Libations were poured, speeches and tributes were made in Anansi's honor. First by tortoise, his international rivalry in trickery, then by the other animals. It was a sad occasion indeed. Even the laughing hyena was weeping. The elephant shed tears by the bucketful, and the dog howled and howled. There in the special circular-shaped coffin, Anansi's body rested in state. His 8 arms tucked neatly by his side, his mouth set in an unearthly smile. Perhaps he is dreaming about heavenly and never-ending mountains of fufu, Mr. Monkey thought to himself. Only he was too polite to say so. The same afternoon, amidst the beating of drums, the firing of muskets, and the piping of flutes, Anansi's coffin was loaded on the ox's back and carried to the middle of the farm, exactly as Anansi had instructed. A hole was dug, and the special circular-shaped coffin lowered into it with a rope. The last soil dropped on the coffin lid, and the mourners filed sadly homeward. The sun went down on the empty field, and slowly, silently rose the moon. Slowly, silently, in time with it, rose the lid of the coffin. Then, out of the coffin, slowly, silently appeared an arm, then another, then another, then another, all the way up to 8. Then, slowly, silently, rose the head of Anansi. Not all, just the eyes rolling beadily around on stalks, taking in the lie of the land to make sure nobody was watching. The field was empty. There in moonlight and the shadows, Anansi came out of his coffin and held his stomach with laughter. So I tricked them this time, he snorted through his furry nostrils. I really tricked them this time. They thought I was dying, but I wasn't dying at all. When I refused that groundnut, what they did not know was that I had my own secret supply under the bed all the time. Oh, the fools! But I am feeling hungry again. Let me not waste time. And there, in the yam field, Anansi started pulling up his yams as fast as he could get his 8 hands on them. Yams and more yams, the very ones he and his family had spent all those back-breaking months planting. Soon he had a pile of them, the fattest and the tastiest he could find. Then he brought out from his coffin his small kerosene stove and his king-size pots and his cooking oil. He shaved and cut up the pile of yams, added the necessary ingredients, lit the stove and hummed tunes as if to hurry the cooking along. At last, Anansi's private feast was ready. Himself as host, chief honorable guest, and other invitees combined. Soon he was eating to his heart and stomach's content. Several pots of food later, he had finished. Anansi lowered himself back into his coffin, skillfully scraped soil on top, and in no time was sleeping off the after effects of his massive meal. An hour later, along came the sun, and along came Anansi's family, their shadows spidering out in front of them. The field was just as they had left it. Or almost. Things are not always what they seem on the surface. Imagine their surprise when they dug a foot or 2 below the soil and found half of their harvest missing. Had they got the field wrong? But no. One memory might be wrong, but not 5 memories together, and all in exactly the same way. What thief then could have done it? Not to mention the insult to the dear and late departed. If the thief had no sympathy for the dead, he might at least respect them and leave them to their eternal rest. What was to be done? Gong, gong, gong. It was not long before the village crier had been informed, and he was summoning the elders and local wise men for a meeting. What was the best method to catch this yam stealer and disturber of the dead as well as of the living? With calabashes of freshly tapped palm wine on hand to provide refreshment and inspiration, The elders scratched their heads. More and more speeches, and the orangutan scratched his armpits. Several thousand words and many proverbs later, they had come up with a definite plan. They could not catch the thief in any obvious way. He was obviously far too clever for that. No, they would need to catch him with a trick. Even the trickiest trickster would not be able to wriggle from. They would. Well, we will come to that later. Meanwhile, back in the yam field, night after night, when his family and everyone else had gone home, and Nancy rose from the coffin, pulled up some yams, cooked them on his secret stove, then ate them and ate them and ate them, and was still eating them when, one night, in mid-mouthful, he stopped. Before him in the moonlight stood a skinny, scruffy-looking figure, stretching out his arms. Hey, you! So you don't know who owns this farm? Go away, you rogue! You hear? Shouted Anansi as bravely as he could manage. But the figure did nothing. Just stood and stood and stood there like a towering dummy. Aha! So you don't know Anansi? Kweku Anansi? World champion for greed and fast eating? Or perhaps you're deaf. Whoever you are, I said get out from this my farm, or I will make trouble. I am telling you. Still, the weird figure just stood there, and stood there, and stood there. This was too much for Nancy. So you are dumb as well as deaf, are you? We will see about that. If you won't respect the living, at least you might learn some respect for the dead. So you don't know, I have just risen from the grave. You don't know that I am a ghost. And you know what ghosts can do, don't you? Or do you want me to give a demonstration of my supernatural powers? I am warning you. All right, Mr. Man or whatever, whoever you are. Enough is enough. All right. If words won't frighten you, take this. And there in the moonlight, Anansi gave the figure a definitely unsupernatural slap, as mighty as the mighty Igor himself. First, thwack with one arm, and then, but Anansi's arm had stuck. Ho! So you think you can lay hold of me like that, do you? And on my own farm too? All right then, if I can't slap sense into you, let me kick some sense into you. Take this. His leg stuck. Huh? This is getting serious. Take this then. His next leg stuck also. This was more than a serious business. Anansi, who had in his time beaten the hippopotamus and the elephant in a single duel, had never met such an opponent before. He wiggled, he squiggled, he jiggled, he wriggled, and he would have even ziggled if such a word existed. In this world or the next, what kind of opposition was this? Anansi had just 5 blows left. For blow number 4, he unleashed a kick straight out of a kung fu film with the same sticky result. Then he let fly another flying drop kick. It flew through the air and also stuck with no more effect than a sausage fly against a window pane. 3 blows left. A karate chop, a left hook punch, a final slap, then an even more final, desperate and almighty headbutt. Anansi was now stuck from his furry head to his 8 hands or feet. Worst of all, his opponent had not even uttered a word. Anansi's pride and anger now turned to beggarly fear. Look, Mr. Man, whoever, whatever you are, I beg, I am sorry for what I said just now about you being a thief and me being a ghost. I didn't mean it. Just let me go. If you are hungry, I will share my food with you, if you like. Or if the food is not enough, I can always cook some more. All right. How many yams do you want? 50? 100? Just let me go. All right. Take the whole harvest. I don't mind. only put me down. I am aching. Oh, Mr. Man, please, please. Little did Nancy know that he was not speaking to a man at all, not even a deaf and dumb one. No, the man was a scarecrow, covered with the stickiest, gummiest gum from the stickiest, gummiest gum tree the forest could provide. However much Anansi begged or shouted, it did not listen, but just kept on holding Anansi, till along came the sun, big and red, at the end of the field. And along with it came Anansi's family. If Anansi's death had been a shock, if the disappearance of their yam harvest had been another, then here was a shocking guest shock of all. There was their dear and late departed, risen from the dead and dangling in mid-air. If Anansi were really a returning ancestor or spirit, certainly no ancestor had returned to earth in such a form. Or so soon? Was it really possible to reach heaven so quickly? Or the other place? The disgrace of it all. Before anyone dared to bring Anansi down from his peculiar sticking place, he was forced, painfully, shamefully, to confess everything. From his eating half the yam harvest, right down to his refusing that single ground nut, because he had a whole store of them under his bed. All the time. No wonder the traditional doctor had rustled and shuffled his leaves in vain. Poor Anansi, how small he felt. Somebody brought a pot of boiling water, and limb by limb he was unstuck and brought back down to earth. As punishment, all Anansi's cooking implements were confiscated indefinitely until the next yam harvest. Anansi refused to cook anything for him but bread and water. And of course, she did not forget this time to check under Anansi's bed for any hidden supplies of groundnuts. All right, if you refuse to cook for me, Anansi threatened, I will go and marry a second wife who will. Just you wait and see. But then Anansi had become so infamous, no female would have him, not even Mrs. Mantis, who had eaten up 20 husbands already and was hungrily awaiting another one. What was left but for Anansi to go back home for his evening bread and water? And that is why, kind listeners, when you see a spider hiding so tinily in the corner of your house, it is only Anansi. Still, after all these years, he has not forgotten his lesson. The end, and good night until our...
Every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. you will hear a old time story by Gene Abbott on BAYHILLNEWS.net.
The National Council Association UK, in collaboration with the National Council of Barbadian Association UK, of the High Commissioner, presents Cricket Rama 2025 takes place on Sunday, the 17th of August in High Wycombe at the Cricket Club, London Road, High Wycombe, HB11 1DE. Tickets, adults £15, children over the age of 12 £8, £20 at the door. Tickets available from Eventbrite at Cricket Rama 25. All starts from 11 a.m. till 7 p.m. 2020 Cricket Match. Barbados X1 versus St. Vincent and the Grenadines. X1 entertainment by Dynamite plus Vergage and DJ Rocky Bar. Caribbean drinks and food will be on sale. Games for kids. For ticket information, contact Marian and 077 402 62742. Deanna 07957 234405. For Coventry, contact Paul on 07909 532027. Oxford, Catherine on 0739 6755416. London East 07961 359 069. London West 07931 37908. For more information and stores, please contact NCBA UKBA JANS at gmail.com. Supporting charity in SVG Belfungo. Those your Vincent.
Ever wondered what it feels like to step into a Caribbean story? Let's take a journey together. Imagine chasing mysteries under a mango tree, only to discover cheeky monkeys stealing the fruit. Or diving into the ocean to find a treasure hidden by nature itself. And yes, even a dancing goat stealing the show at Carnival, because why not? All of these stories are filled with magic, courage, and a whole lot of heart. It's about finding strength in each other, even when times are tough, and discovering light in the most unexpected places. Island adventures, tales of the Caribbean. Ready to dive in?
As Colin Butler takes you on this amazing journey.
Dive into the adventure and feel the vibe. Now available on Amazon, or you can connect at www.colindbutler.com. Let's take our Caribbean children across the Caribbean on this amazing adventure.
Last year, she brought you Growing Up in Vincy and a collection of poems, Vincy Lifestyle. She told you about minivans, Commerceman, Kingstown and Carnival. In Growing Up Vincy, she took you down memory lane to playing games at school, riding in wooden buses, Saturday and Sunday chores, bathing and washing in the river. She even told you about zombie stories. This year, she brings you Uniquely Vincy, which details all our unique features. Tree, Madongo, whaling in Beckway, Conch Fest, and Dancing the Cake in Union Island.
And Dr. Nicolette Springs books, Growing Up in Vincy, a collection of poems, Vincy Lifestyle, and Uniquely Vincy, are available at Games Book Center, Paul's Avenue, and Variety Service Center, Georgetown, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines.
While in Antigua, travel with Bully bus services between Pigot's Village and St. John's on Old Firearm Road. We also conduct island tours 7 days per week, all in comfort, style, and safety. For more information, contact Bully